The MIT Sloan School of Management has always been a different kind of business school from the rest.
At MIT, we talk about addressing the world's biggest challenges, and that right there says it all for impact.
The Sloan central purpose is organizations are the path by which great ideas have an impact in the world.
We are in the business of helping people become better leaders, principled, innovative leaders who improve the world.
I have brilliant colleagues, but also colleagues who, at the core, are working to improve the world and to build something for real.
But so every person and every colleague that I have at MIT, I think our business is to try to make the world a much better place.
Today's world, you see a tremendous amount of alienation, of class separation. The one thing everybody agrees on is entrepreneurship is a great thing.
Bill Olet, in many ways, is the example, from central casting of the entrepreneur turned catalyst. He likes creating the conditions so that others can learn. And he has been an extraordinarily successful leader of the Martin Trust Center.
It's my firm belief that studying sustainability is perfectly suited for a school of management.
For years, John has been basically driving home this idea of how it's all a systems and we have to view the world through a systems lens. Here's someone who is absolutely at the top of his game as a scholar, and yet is completely committed to translating that scholarship into change in the real world.
What I'm really interested and excited by is to figure out how to use insights from finance and financial tools to improve the world.
Antoinette has this knack of finding problems and data that lead to pay dirt, that lead to something that has much broader implications. And when she digs into a problem, she often goes one or two layers deeper than other people have, and she finds out things that other people have missed.
Taking care of complex systems is almost like taking care of a human. You need to really understand the underlying mechanism of the current problem in order to really fix it.
We worked with a number of groups, failed multiple times, and then came across Retsev and his team. This work has had an enormous impact on the lives of thousands of patients. Partnering with Retsev and folks at Sloan has been so enormously helpful to us. Not only understanding the science of operations management, but actually making it happen in an organization that is made up of people.
At Sloan, we often like to say a better world is our business. That has a lot of implications, and I think this is a very profound statement.
It's a great idea that's turned into a great action that makes the world a better place.
The questions that are incredibly ambitious, that are incredibly impactful to humankind.
How we engage with that outside world, business leaders, policymakers in every kind of organization.
Using capitalism, which is the most powerful force the world's ever seen, to be able to take and make the world a better place.
And so if we can contribute to that, if we can have impact with our ideas, that's the ultimate reward.
Good evening. Very good. Thank you for coming out, so many of you. This is amazing to spend this time with me, with other school leaders, and with each other. I appreciate your doing that. My name's Dave Schmidtlein. I'm the Dean of MIT's Sloan School of Management. I think sometimes it can feel like MIT, like Cambridge, Massachusetts, like MIT Sloan is kind of far away. And I hope one of the things that we're able to do this evening a little bit is to bring it a little closer to you, and you come closer to MIT as well. At MIT Sloan, we have a focus. That focus is simple: invent the future. We create new ways of making products, and we make new ways of seeing the world. We have students with amazing, brilliant minds that we manage to inspire, and they inspire us. We are a mission-driven institution. Principled, innovative leaders who improve the world. You heard that, you saw that on the video. That video gave you a glimpse of things that happen at MIT Sloan every day. You heard from some of the leaders in our community, some faculty, who are working on some of the most important and most complex challenges. And maybe more importantly, you heard from some of the people who have been amazed, impressed, and grateful about the work that they've been able to do. I'm proud of them, but that's really not enough. It's important for us this evening to try to give voice to the nature of the impact that we're pursuing at MIT. That motto, or that mission statement about principled, innovative leaders, it is about our faculty, and they are really doing that kind of work, and we will touch on that briefly. But it's not only about our faculty. Developing principled, innovative leaders is equally what we do with the school's staff, who have done nothing less than reinvent this school over the last 10 years. It's what we do with our students, of course. We talk to them all the time about that purpose, and they take that purpose away with them when they leave. And you, our alumni, are also equally a part of that purpose. You are the principled, innovative leaders who are improving the world, and you need to be those people. There's another part of the mission statement for the school, ideas made to matter. That too is a part of our history. It's a part of our commitment. And I think it's important today, as we look at some of the work of these faculty, to consider what kind of ideas we're producing and what kind of impact we're trying to have. This is a time, honestly, of some seriousness in the world. It's a time of some uncertainty. Of course, it's always a time of change. But it's a time of choices also. And just to highlight a few of the areas of focus and impact for MIT Sloan. So this is a time when drug discovery, when basic science that we need so much is not going to be funded by the public sector in the way that it has been historically. It's just not. And how we create the mechanisms and the incentives for the private sector to come in is very much a focal point of activity and impact for MIT Sloan. Another area of impact relates to outmoded transportation systems, healthcare systems, in some cases, systems of agriculture that need reinvention. The public sector is not going to do that. And the private sector needs the inventive energy, both to design new systems and to create the means to transition very complex, very entrenched systems to those new systems. And you saw just a glimpse in the video of some of the work around healthcare that's doing exactly that. In sustainable business and the need that we have for a healthy planet, going forward, we know in so many parts of the world it's going to have to rely on private sector initiatives and on creative minds coming from places like MIT to create the new models, in some cases the new business processes that will enable and sustain that kind of activity. The financial system in this country and in the world needs more efficiency, needs more resilience, and we know that the processes, the leadership that's needed, the grounded, rigorous leadership that's needed, also has to be part of the future, and MIT Sloan has been there. Cybersecurity and digital resilience. You can't look at your iPad without seeing challenges there. And more laws are not the only, some would say not even the main approach. The approaches that are needed, sure, have to do with innovations, including from MIT in computer science, but also on the economic and sociological side, the way people interact with technology is a focus at the Sloan School as we work with partners across campus. All these innovations are needed, and they are actually coming, and MIT's Sloan School is in the middle of them, energetic and effective. While touching on those points and thinking about you this evening, you know I said that you are the principled innovative leaders. So looking across those range of needs, you people in this room, I don't know all of you, but I know more than a few of you. And I know about the work that you're doing to strengthen the resilience of the financial system. Those are individuals who are right here in our alumni community. I know the work that you're doing to improve agriculture, to sustain and improve renewable energy. I know the work that you're doing with organizations around the kinds of operational efficiency and invention that create new business processes and sustain them for a future in sustainable business. And on and on. You really are those principled, innovative leaders. And it's a great joy and a little point of pride to be able to be with you here this evening. Now, I want to turn back to the faculty for a few minutes and some of the work that they're doing. And what I'd be delighted to do is to pick out one faculty member and talk to you for about half an hour about my perception of the great work that that faculty member is doing. But there's a faculty member in the room who I'd love to pick who won't let me tell his story. He wants to tell you his story himself. That's Professor Roberto Rigobon. Has anybody here ever interacted with Professor Rigobon by chance? So a couple of you, so you may have some expectations on your own. Among the things that I think we're all incredibly proud of is the way that he's changed the world through the Billion Prices Project. And for someone like Roberto, that's just the first act. So would you please welcome Professor Roberto Rigobon.
Thank you very much. It's great to be in Brazil. Fantastic. I only have one complaint about the hotel. When I was coming here, they told me that I could not wear a baseball cap. So they went through all my clothing, but they didn't go through my underwear. So here it is. Okay, now I have the whole stuff. Good. So what I would like to do is to tell you a little bit a story about the Billion Prices Project, but a different story about how it exists and why it exists, how it came to be what it is today. I remember this was actually the year 2001 when world prices were increasing tremendously fast in food, housing, and oil prices. Almost all of them triple or quadruple in a period of about 3 years. And I had a very simple question, which was, what is the inflation rate of the poor? Because when you think about the poor, they mostly they consume food, transportation, housing, and a cell phone. That's it. So cell phone prices are going down, but everything else was just increasing incredibly fast. And I asked a simple question. How do you know how much are they suffering from this? And we had no answer to that question. So I started talking to economists saying, like, we need to compute the inflation rate of the poor, because we compute the inflation rate of the average of the citizens, but not about the poor. And people said, oh, that's so no interesting. Like, this is so no cool. I said, but you know, if we don't measure the inflation rate of the poor, how do we know we're doing a good job? That is very uncool. So, in the end, statistical offices didn't know how to do that. I mean, they know how to do that. They didn't have the resources to actually compute it. There was only one country in the world, Hong Kong, that was the only one that was computing at that time the inflation rate of the poor. So I talked to a student of mine. You might know him. So who here knows Alberto Cavallo? Raise your hand. Oh my God, all the Alberto fans are here, huh? Good, it's fantastic. So Alberto at that time was doing a PhD in Harvard, and I tell him that it would be good to try to create our own data set. And when I am saying that Argentina intervenes in the statistical office to manipulate the inflation rate of Argentina, so Alberto said, okay, let's compute an inflation rate, and let's create a web page that shows what is the truthful inflation of Argentina. And I said, okay, we are going to call that, this is your truthful inflation, you miserable lying bastard.com. And apparently that was actually taken. So we just call it inflacionverdadera.com. But Alberto and I started to compute that in a laptop. After that, we realized, but we can compute also the inflation rate of Brazil. And maybe they are also lying, which actually you were not. But so we were very surprised. Anyway, so there was no manipulation of the data in Brazil. We actually did Brazil, Chile, Colombia, and Argentina first. The fifth country was Uruguay. We started with food prices. And in fact, we started expanding this project. So we were first in a laptop. Then the laptop was just collapsing, so we needed to put a server. So I bought a server, and I put the server in my office. And then that server was not enough, so I bought 3 more servers. And then actually the heating system in my office was failing. I am telling you, it was actually the fire department show up in my office saying that this was an unhealthy environment. And to be honest, in the winter, the temperature was about 30 degrees centigrade in my office. People were wearing shorts in my office, and yes, it was like a sauna, okay? And they said, you need to get these computers out. And I said, we cannot stop downloading prices. I'm sorry. So they sent me to the basement of MIT Sloan, and then I started buying servers in the Sloan School. And there was a moment in which actually the dean, in order to send an email, he has to ask for my permission, which was great. He never sent a bad email about me during that period of time. But all this process grew exponentially. And in fact, it's called the Billion Prices Project because we download 1 billion prices every single day and track them internationally. The Statistical Office of the United States tracks 88,000 every 2 months. This is the difference of this. This project could not have existed in any other place other than MIT. This was a question about statistical procedures to answer a question on economics that we never thought we answered incorrectly, like the inflation rate. We think we know how to compute that. And it's actually a computer science project in terms of the methodologies and the equipment required. So when I was asking funding from the economics literature and the National Science Foundation, the biggest grant from them would have financed only 2 months of the project. So they were saying, why on earth do I have to give you 6 times the highest grant we have ever given in the history of the National Science Foundation to measure inflation? What an uncool project. Then talking to statisticians, they said, this is what a statistical office should do. Why should we actually finance? Just the statistical office should do it. And when I was going to a computer science literature, they said, but this is not computer science, this is economics. So it was a nightmare. It was a freak of a project. It was a typical MIT project. It was a totally Sloan project. And this project exists because of the financing that I received from the Sloan School and then by transitivity from all of you. The project has actually made me think very hard about measurement in general. In fact, I think I'm obsessed about measurement now. I am moving farther and farther from economics and closer to measuring life. I actually think that this is an important issue. So, I mean, how many of you have, for example, Apple Watches? By the way, there's an Apple Watch number 3. Marcelo, you have one Apple Watch, yes. Who has like a Fitbit or Microsoft Bands or any of those? Raise your hands. Okay, did those devices somehow change your life and your behavior? They did. No, the day you are supposed to walk 5,000 steps and you are just at 4,200, you answer the phone and then you start walking like Roberto in the class, no? Like, yes, yeah, okay, now I can sit. I got my 5,000 for the day. So measurement changes our life. And I started thinking about how we measure life in general. How do we measure sadness? We don't. We measure depression. So we measure too late. How do you know a relationship is in bad shape? We don't. We only know it's in a bad shape the day it's broken. And if at that day, when they tell you, by the way, they usually tell you it's not you, it's me, but that's a useless statement, okay? But when they tell you it's not you, but me, then you go back in time and you realize all the mistakes that you have made. And then you realize that indeed there were signs that that relationship was being broken. In fact, if you have not talked to a friendship from primary school, you don't even know why you don't talk to them. You don't even know why you were upset. How do we know the environment is being hurt? How do we know a lake is being polluted? Usually when we're losing the lake, we measure surprisingly bad and surprisingly late. My next project is, I call it aggregate confusion. In a second, it will become clear. I work more on the content, on the titles of the projects, and then I get all these students that they do all the work. Is that okay? So I said, I want you to work on aggregate confusion. And people, wow, that sounds like very confusing in the aggregate. Yes, that is correct. That's the definition. So do something. And they work like crazy. And then I do the hardest part of all the projects. You know me, I always take the biggest responsibility, which is all the money and fame and dealing with the celebrities. It's so complicated in life anyway. I mean, you understand that Taylor Swift calls me like every other week? Is that okay? And then these private conversations become a song. Like said, Roberto, I would like to go out with you. And I said, no, I'm married. And then, I have to convince her. I said, players will play, and haters will hate. Shake it up. And then, I just nailed my fingers, and I said, ow! And then she said, oh, that's good for a song. You see, a private conversation. You understand the burden that I have to endure for these projects? Anyway, so the aggregate confusion project, what I'm thinking is about trying to measure ethical behavior. And trying to change the way we, for example, measure women empowerment. You know how we do it today? We count women. We count how many women you have on your board. And we assume that because you have 3 women in your board, then you are okay. As if having them around means that we respect them. What a horrible way of measuring. How do we measure human rights violations? My country, you all know that I'm from Venezuela. My country is going through massive human rights violations. How do we measure that? You understand that the best measurement we have are the images on TV? By the way, on Twitter, because the TV will not give it to you. I find that sad. So what I want to do is I want to tackle, by the way, this is bigger. I'm trying to measure, for example, human trafficking and organ trafficking, and working with the FBI on that. I'm trying to measure aspect of environmental pollution, ethical behavior toward consumers, ethical behavior toward your workers, through gender and race, of course, ethical behavior toward aspect of the communities in general. So how responsible you are. Corruption. I had somebody ask me about 3 weeks ago if they were complaining that Brazil is incredibly more corrupt than before. And I said, no, actually, no. I know for a fact that Brazil today is less corrupt than 15 years ago. I know for a fact that is actually factual. And he said, no, but look at all the people that are in jail. I said, exactly. So the fact you measure corruption by the number of scandals. The difference has been that in Brazil, someone actually, some few have decided to act. And therefore today you have more scandals, more in the news, and more people in jail than ever in the history of Brazil. And in fact, that is having an impact on lower amount of corruption. But we don't measure. We don't measure the willingness of someone to violate the law. We just measure Are you in jail or not? So, in some sense, the only way we're going to improve our organizations and the only way we're going to improve our countries is that we measure them correctly. How do you know if you respect women in your organizations? You better measure first. And if you measure correctly, then you will take actions to improve. How do you know if you are not using child labor, some of the clothing companies of the world? And it's not about finding the scandal, it's about having the procedures that will guarantee that. I want this project that all these measurements are totally open source and public. I don't want this to be hidden. I will feel horrible, absolutely horrible, of knowing that one company is likely to make something illegal and make money out of that. I will feel absolutely devastated. So this needs to be public. This needs your help. The only way this is going to happen is that we, as the private sector, act to self-regulate ourselves. And I and the business school need your help. This is not going to happen. This is even more strange than the Billion Prices project. At least on that one, we were measuring inflation rates, so people could relate. People ask me, how are you going to measure women empowerment? And I said, I know I will be able to measure, just trust me. And actually, I'm not going to measure. I will find someone to measure, and then I'll take the credit, but that's a minor point. I will provide the motivation and inspiration for that. In the end, let me just tell you something about, and I will end with this. I think about the world in a framework that I call promise. And it's called promise because each letter actually identifies the dimension that I believe is important for us as humans to take care. The P stands for personal, R for relationships, O for organizations and jobs, M for the markets and the economy, I for institutions, S for social and political, and E is for the environment. So all of this, if we think about them, all of these dimensions are very important. If I take a country and I fix everything, so imagine I make them respectable to the environment, I make the society and the politics work together, I make the economy great, the institutions fantastic, I make the relationships great. So imagine that I take Argentina and I fix everything. Well, the Argentinians will still be completely unhappy all the time. Is that okay? I mean, on the personal dimension, there's no chance they will ever be happy, okay? So that clearly is a not sustainable society. So we need to actually pay attention to everything. So please, can you allow Argentina to win a World Cup, okay? Or at least to qualify? I know, I mean, like, can you actually be grateful to the poor guys? Give them some happiness. You have 37 points already in the qualifiers. Give them something, poor Argentinians. Anyway, so yeah, they're having a much worse time today. Any of these dimensions, we need to improve our measurement. All of them. How do we measure happiness? You know how we measure? We ask people, are you happy? And in fact, we ask them, can you describe how your day looks like? That's not a measurement of happiness, because we're not measuring their expectations. You see, someone in Venezuela, or a Venezuelan that lives in Boston, when they ask me, you know, can you describe your day? The way I will typically answer is, we wake up in the morning, we have breakfast with our kids, you know, the kids go to school, they have a great school, my wife and I, we work, we have a great job, I go to MIT, then I come back in the train at 5 p.m., 6 p.m., then I go to the kids, and, you know, in the winter we go skiing, in the summer we go hiking, and then they do homework, you know, yes, you know, we're happy. So, see, the same Venezuelan family in Venezuela, okay, when they wake up in the morning, they said, can you describe your day? I said, well, you know, today in the morning I woke up and then suddenly there was water, man. What is water? Everybody take a bath. I mean, we have water. We will not have water for the next month. Then I open, you know, the window. My car is there. It has not been stolen. It's a miracle. So we go down and we kiss the car. Then I go to the office, and then suddenly when I get to the office, I find that the company has not been expropriated yet. And then I say, oh, Marcelo, you are back from the kidnapping. So good to see you, my friend. And then I go back to my house, and it's 2 hours of traffic, and people are shooting in the traffic. I get to my home, and I see my family. You see, there's so many reasons to be happy. See, the way to ask the question is, By the way, if I ask French, are you happy? They are never happy. Never, ever they have answered to that question, yes, okay? But the way to ask the question is, you ask the Venezuelan, are you happy? And he said, if you say yes, you stay in Venezuela. You know that the second happiest country on earth is Venezuela? The way we ask the question? Because the fact that you are answering the question means that you are alive. And our expectations are so incredibly low that just that fact is enough. I think it's incredibly sad. So the question to the Venezuelan is, are you happy? And if the answer is yes, you stay in Venezuela. If you say no, I send you to France. And then you ask the French. He said, well, I'm going to ask you if you're happy. If you say no, I send you to Venezuela. What do you think the answers will be? We have to collect expectations better. We don't measure expectations. We cannot take actions without measurement, and that's why I'm being totally obsessed. I think that the moral guidance of societies 10,000 years ago was provided by the elderly and the stories that we told. About 2,000 years ago, it's about, religious beliefs. I think that in the last 300, 400 years has been about governments. They are kind of telling us what is right and what is wrong. I think it's now the time that we take ownership of that we self-regulate, that we, in an open way, decide what is right and what is wrong as a society. And that's my challenge. I need your help to do that. We will not do it just alone. We have to do it all together. Let me pass the baton to someone that is very important, but it needs a proper introduction. This story was told to me by Arnoldo Hacks, who told me that some other elderly faculty told him this. So this has been for at least 100 years, an MIT story. There was a time at MIT when the faculty that was hired and the students that were incoming were so small that they had all of them in one single room, okay? So the story goes that the president of MIT shows up there and is welcoming all the incoming doctoral students. These were doctoral students and faculty all to MIT. And he says, his speech goes something like this, what makes MIT great? Certainly not the students. And then all the faculty said, certainly not the faculty. And then all the students, yeah, you bastard. Anyway, certainly not the staff. Certainly not our infrastructure. And then he went and just killed everybody, I mean, if you think I'm politically incorrect, that guy just destroyed everybody. And then he said, so why MIT is great? It's on the pursuit of excellence. Is that our faculty, our staff, our students are constantly in the pursuit of excellence on everything that we do. We want to be kind, we want to be loyal, we want to be honest, and in that pursuit is what creates a community, a unique community that is great, not only at the moment of study, but afterwards. Everyone here wants to continue studying, wants to continue improving yourself and the organizations you work for. I'm going to say something nice about Brazil, so I need all the devices to be off, okay? I have a reputation to protect at MIT, okay? I have never said anything nice about Brazil in a classroom, so I need all of your phones off. Is that okay? If you put this in YouTube, it will hurt dramatically my ability to make jokes in the class. One thing that is truly amazing from that story and the pursuit of excellence is the role that you students play. I am always mesmerized about the extreme high quality on every aspect. Not only on your academic accomplishments, which, I think those are the easiest one to evaluate. What makes you different is not your brain, it's your heart. It's how you care. That makes you completely different, completely unique. And I'm always mesmerized. I said, well, this year I'm going to get some bad Brazilian. And no, I don't. I get good Brazilians. And they said, the next year I said, there will be a bad one. No, they're always good. Even when Hector was accepted, I said, now there's a hope that maybe Hector will be bad. No, he was good too. I mean, so it is constantly, I'm constantly surprised by the incredible high quality. To me, that's almost like a miracle. It's magic happening because I show up and, you're great. And then you're also designed to laugh to all my jokes, which are all really bad, and it's the same joke every year, and then you laugh, which is totally surprising. So not only that you're smart, but you have a really good sense of humor. That magic doesn't happen just randomly. Happens because there's a staff of individuals that works extremely hard to make this possible. And that comes from the top. From a guy that produces the magic and the miracles. So he deserves an introduction like a real circus, okay? Because what he does every single day is to create this circus of individuals that are, all of them, enjoying the faculty. We are kind of the monkeys and the elephant. So let me do the proper introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages, please, I want you to offer a warm welcome to our closing act. The unique, the sexiest, the smartest, the most charming of all, Roy Garcia!
Thank you. Thank you, Roberto. My mother would thank you for that introduction. And good evening, friends. It's so good to see many faces tonight, familiar faces who I've met during the first time I came here in 1996, when I interviewed some of the people, and many of you are here in the audience. Faces that I've also gotten to know as students at the Sloan School, and faces that I've traveled with. We traveled to Israel several years ago, and now as alumni. Thank you for welcoming me here this evening, and thank you also for welcoming me to your home. I'm very pleased to be here this evening, and I'm also pleased to give voice to the student community. And I will just say this. MIT students are the best students in the world, period. Right? Thank you. Right. I say this because I know you want to hear it, but I also mean it, and it's true. The students are really the best students that we have in the world, and it is the reason why I'm still at MIT after almost about 30 years now at the Sloan School, and that's what keeps me there, and that's what drives me every day. That's what gets me to work every day. And I'm only 20 years short of my predecessor, who worked there for 50 years. And many of you know her as Miriam Sherburne. Miriam stayed for 50 years. And the first thing she told me when I met her is, I've worked here for 50 years. And I'm only 20 years short of that. So I hope to stay for another 20 years. But before Miriam retired, there were two things that the students and our alumni did. One was they named a lounge after her, the Miriam Sherburne Lounge. And the second thing is that they established a fellowship called the Sherburne Fellowships. And many of you here, I'm sure, received that fellowship. And I hope that when it's my turn to retire in 20 years, that something similar will be made in my name. All right, thank you. Well, all jokes aside, thank you very much. All jokes aside, over the years, I've gotten to see and fully appreciate our students, and you as an alumni. And there's only one thing that I could say, that you are truly different. And it comes down to this. In addition to being extremely smart, in the way that you show your work, in the way you work with people, and your sense of purpose and inventiveness, it only shows that smart is just a baseline. Right? This is something that we celebrate and cultivate at Sloan throughout our educational process. Whether it's demo days, educational treks, the trips or action learning, this is something that you take with you when you leave Sloan, and it's something that changes you. Now, a couple years ago, I was having dinner with an alumnus. And during that dinner, he told me that he still has his admission letter. And not only that, but he framed his admission letter. Any of you here still have your admission letters? Oh, great. Wow. Very good. Very good. And I was surprised to find out about that because, for him, it's not just a piece of paper, but it's the start of a journey that changed him. And I'm so glad to hear that, from him, and glad to hear that many of you are still keeping that. Yeah. Let me tell you 3 stories of people who went to Sloan, people that I knew as applicants, as students, but also as alumni. These are stories of people who I'm proud to describe to you, people who are making a change in the world and improving the world. The first story was when I was invited to speak at Harvard Kennedy School. You went to Kennedy School, right? Yes. So, and I was there to talk about the combined MBA, MPA program. And at the end of the information session, a young man, came to see me and talked to me and told me how he was in awe of MIT and that he knew people at MIT and that he wanted to be at MIT. And then I realized after talking to him that he's Russian. Not only is he Russian, he's from the Russian Far East. He belongs to a tribe called the Aleuts. So these are the minorities in Russia. And he was in oil and gas before he came to Harvard Kennedy School and also MIT. And when he graduated, he also worked in oil and gas. But this January, he called me and asked for and how I could direct him to MIT so that he can get his transcript. Because he had just been appointed as the Minister of Investment and Entrepreneurship in this republic in the Russian Far East. And he's from Yakutia. He's a Facebook friend, so I see his updates all the time. And he's making a difference in that part of the world. This is a person who could make a lot of money in oil and gas, but chose to give up that career to serve his country and make a difference, in that country, and also helping his fellow people in Russia, in Far East Russia. In fact, we now have a relationship with that part of the world. I got a call the other day from our Office of International Programs, and we're doing a REAP program, that's Regional Entrepreneurship Accelerator Program with that part of Russia, and I'm pretty sure that he had his hand on it. The second story relates to a person I interviewed in Israel. He's a Palestinian Arab citizen of Israel, and he was actually the first Palestinian Arab I met in Israel. And he's a classic person who made his way up through education. He went to school in Haifa, got accepted to a top university in Israel, the Technion University. He got his bachelor's degree, and he also got his master's degree there, in work in technology, in Israel. And we admitted him. But I knew he had problems paying for his education because he is Palestinian Arab citizen of Israel. He did not have the same resources that the normal citizen from Israel have. Because he did not serve in the army, they were excluded from the army, he couldn't use that network. And he came to me and asked me for support. And I was glad at that time when he came to see me that we had some money, and we gave him money. Not a lot of money, just a few money, just to help him get through. When he became a student, he organized a student trek to Israel. Israel high-tech tour. And here, he worked with his Israeli classmates, visited several cities in Israel and Ramallah in the West Bank, looking at technology. Because for him, technology is something that bridges that big divide between two cultures. And he still believes in it. And they were written up, the whole trip was written up in Forbes magazine. They got a lot of kudos from a lot of people. But more importantly, it was eye-opening, even for our Israeli students, because they're not allowed to cross the border. They're not allowed to go to West Bank. But that's the kind of work that someone that we admitted from this particular region, has done. And he's making a difference, not just to his classmates, but also in that part of the world. And he's right now working in technology, educational technology, in the United States. And his hope is to go back and continue his work in that arena. The third story I want to tell you is someone from Brazil. Unfortunately, I don't see him here. I was hoping that he would be here. He is someone. I remember seeing his application, on my desk. A very impressive person, because while he was here, he was involved in a massive turnaround of a company. And the company was generating revenues of 400%, I believe. And then the company grew from 2,200 to 5,000 employees. All of that through technology. And when he was at Sloan, he received a Legatum Fellowship because he developed a software to help children study better. And this was a software that he worked while he was there. And when he graduated, he stayed in the area. He stayed in. He's working now in HR technology, helping companies empower the employees so that they could be better employees. And these are just examples of our students and now alumni who are making a difference in the world. But there is a common thread among these alumni, and I can tell you many, many other stories about similar folks. But the common thread is that they're smart, they're driven, and they're truly good-hearted, kind-hearted. I heard that word once from Roberto Fernandez, who told me about our students. Roberto. Most of you studied OP with him. But that's what makes our students really different. Now, you are the people who make a better world your business. And your generation and the generation that follows you will be the ones who will invent the future. And we will all benefit from that. So my final story relates to an experience that I had several years ago, one day in April, actually. It was on a rainy day in April. You'll remember Memorial Drive and Wadsworth. You turn that traffic light. And I was driving. It was a Saturday morning. As I was driving, and as I was about to turn right, I saw a family of 4 people having the picture taken in front of E52, the old Sloan building, now the Chang building. And the first thing that came to mind is tourists. By the way, you do see them at MIT. You see a lot of people having the picture taken in front of the Sloan or picture taken in front of the dome. But on second thought, I said, oh, how lucky I am to be at MIT. While there are people who can only dream to be part of MIT, I am already part of MIT. And you are also part of MIT. And that is something that is important for us to remember. You have an important role to ensure that those who exemplify the MIT Sloan spirit becomes part of our community and join you as alumni. I am asking you for your support in this capital campaign. Please give what you can to ensure that the next generation of Sloanies can benefit from the experience that we've all had. And the experience that made you who you are now. The practical dreamers, the principled problem solvers, and the purposeful inventors who are taking on the toughest challenges and who are truly making a difference by choosing to use their talents as a force for good as a force to change the world. Thank you for listening to me. And in closing, I'd like to quote Shakespeare. I can no other answer make but thanks, thanks, and ever thanks. No.
So I have about 10 pages here. You've been a very patient group, and I appreciate the respect and the interest that you've shown. I would like to close with 2 facts, and I'm going to ask you for money. I'm going to do that. You know I will. The 2 facts, one relates to students, one relates to faculty. MIT is a place that likes data. Here's a piece of data. Our students are distinct. They're different. They're less different than they used to be, and here's why. We haven't changed. Rod hasn't changed. He knows who to go get for MIT Sloan. Other schools, other leading schools, you know exactly who they are, have come to decide that they want those people too. Their profile of admits used to be more different than ours than it is now. We are seeing more overlap with those schools. Those schools offer fellowship aid to entering MBA students to between 50 and 60 or even higher % of the entering class. When I began as dean, it was 11% for us. It's 33% now, and we don't offer as much aid as the other schools do, and we don't want to. We don't want to buy their students, people who want to be there. We just don't want them to buy ours. When we ask you for help, that's what we're asking for. You heard about the faculty this evening and some of the amazing work that they're doing. So a group of people came about a year ago to re-accredit us. The chair of that group was the dean of the Harvard Business School. At the end of a dinner with some of our faculty, someone who's the leader in understanding how technological innovation drives economic development in sub-Saharan Africa. Somebody else who is leading the largest initiative in China to improve food and water safety. And a couple other people doing other stuff. And at the end of the dinner, Nitin Nuriya, our alumnus, by the way, the dean of Harvard Business School, turned to me and said, "How do you get your faculty to do this kind of work? I can't get the Harvard faculty to do it." Now everyone laughed, because no one cares what I think in terms of the work that they do. The faculty work on the stuff they want to. It's the kind of stuff that is more expensive, more complicated, requires more staff, thank you, Professor Rigavan, than it used to. When we come and ask you to support our faculty, that's what we're asking you to support. So you know that MIT has a campaign for a better world. You know that the Sloan School's portion of that activity goes under the heading, "A Better World is Our Business." It really is. It's not a slogan. It's something that comes from all of the parts of our community, students, staff, faculty, and alumni. If you look around, and maybe if you look up, I think you can see it in their faces.
To us,
a better world
is not a lofty vision.
It's not an improbable hope.
It's not a convenient platitude.
It's not even a charge to everyone.
Because then it's a charge to no one.
A better world is ours to make.
A better world is our business.
We know that the important problems today
are complex problems.
Complexity is our call to action.
We start with questions.
Dig in to find facts.
Build and rebuild.
Ideas made to matter.
In our solutions.
Prove that no problem is too big.
When we're working on it together.
The promise that we take with us.
Across borders, boundaries, and walls.
Is that we will stay curious.
And we will stay brave.
Driven by our conviction.
That fixing what's broken.
And inventing what's better.
Isn't just possible.
It's inevitable.
We are the ones to do it.
Because impact is our bottom line.
Making a difference is in our DNA.
And though our burden of responsibility is great,
Our ability to change the world
Is greater.
Today and tomorrow,
a better world.
A better world
A better world is our business.